All right, so you've made it through a bunch of JavaScript stuff. I know at the end it got a little bit hairy. It's just enough for you to have a little grasp on it so that when we enter the mapping world, this isn't going to be just totally crazy. And it might even be a step down a little bit. We've talked about some pretty abstract things, adding up different numbers and things like that. And you can tell talking about programming is sometimes gets quite confusing because we have to talk about adding variables and all kinds of stuff. But we're ready to kind of step back a bit and just talk a little bit more about like how we program, how we organize files, how we fix bugs, this sort of stuff. How do you get a website online? And then we'll come back to a bit more advanced topics when it comes to doing layout and some JavaScript, some ways that make this whole thing look a lot simpler later on. So one thing we want to talk about is splitting up files. At this point, our little file here, this HTML file that we're working with, is kind of long. It's got a bunch of CSS at the start, and it's got a bunch of HTML here, and then it's got a bunch of JavaScript at the end. One thing we typically do is split these up into different files. It just makes it easier to manage. A lot of programming is making sure things are easy to manage. So even in Code Sandbox here, we can actually make new files. So it has here new file, and we'll create one. The standard one for CSS is called style.css. And a standard one for JavaScript is script.js. And now all we'll do is we'll move over all the stuff that's inside this style tag. We don't have to include the style tag itself, that belongs in HTML. We'll put that in the CSS and we'll save that. And then we will take everything that's inside the script tag. We'll take that. We don't have to take the script tag. We'll put it in script.js. Now we can get rid of the script tag, and we can get rid of the style tag. Okay, cool, awesome. Except now all our stuff is gone. Okay, because it doesn't automatically know what file to load in. We might have a couple different files that we use for CSS. Maybe we want to split it up into a different, we want to have our styles for the buttons and our styles for the bottom of the page and our styles for the about page, and we want to put them all on different CSS files. Or we might have different JavaScript files. So we have to use some special HTML to actually link them in. So what we're going to do is there's one called link, and it takes this href, which we saw before with an A element a long time ago, if you remember, and we're going to tell it to take style.css. And I'm doing that dot, which tells it that it's to get it in the current directory. So it's in the same folder as the index.html. We have to add one little bit of attribute, which is this rel equals style sheet. I don't really know what that's about, but it makes it work. Let's save that, and we have it back. Everything's back. Okay, great. Now to load the script, we do it a little differently. If you remember, the style sheet was loaded here. We before had CSS here, and we had script at the bottom. You'll see in the future that this isn't always the case. We tend to put scripts at the end of the page. You don't have to worry too much about why that is, but just roll with me for now. So we have script. We use the same one for this one for some reason, and we will use script.js. We don't have to tell it that it's a JavaScript file. It knows it. So this time when if we reload, oops, I reloaded the whole page. I didn't actually have to do that. But if I reload, we have it working, and we can see if our little stuff still works. We can go 1 plus 2. Oh, nothing's working. Right. We need to actually close this script tag with a different tag. And for some reason, it just works like this. There's some weirdness to things. So now if we do 1 plus 2 plus 3, we're going to get our 6. So it's back. So this is just important to know how to lay out the code a little. We can separate it out now. It's much easier to go into the JavaScript and manage it here, or the CSS and manage it here. Just a little thing. Now, in terms of laying out your code, you'll notice that I've tried to be pretty diligent with this whole nesting stuff. There's tabs. I'm actually pressing the tab key each time. I'm not pressing space a couple times. And this is kind of standard for what we do. With the CSS, I've done the same thing. I've pressed enter and then tab. And that's kind of how I've laid things out so that it's nested. And same with this, although it broke up my little styling a little bit, it's still kind of preserved. I have like a top level thing, and then I press tab for anything that's inside that. I was also doing that when we were writing our functions. If you remember, there's kind of this tabbed layout. So each programmer has a little bit of their own style, but this is very standard that we kind of use spaces or tabs to indent so that it's easier to read. But if you're kind of messy at the start, there's things called linters online or beautifying that will just clean this up for you real quick. So if we go to like beautify CSS, and we can put in a bunch of messy looking CSS. In our case, ours isn't very messy, but let's see, it'll probably still change it a bit. And it kind of gave me the same thing, although it gave me some errors or whatever as well, and told me, oh, you can make this better. So there's these little helpers out there. Let's go to a JS beautifier. Go to a JS beautifier and we can put in our JavaScript and it'll probably reformat it as well. We drop it in there and we say, let's see here, does it beautify code right there. See, it kind of changed it a little, changed the indenting. This is just helpful for you to know as you're separating stuff out into different files and you're starting to clean up the code and make it look nice and you're getting a bit professional. Using these beautifiers can really help you out. You will run into different practices. You'll run into different types of coding. Having your own little style develop over time is part of the fun. So, do what you want on this front. Use mine if you like. Use one of those beautifiers, and we'll see you in the next one where we're going to learn a little bit about debugging and fixing errors.